Chapter 15. Ethan sat on the park bench nervously digging his fingernails into the chips paint as he waited for Soren. Most of the park here was grassy and open, but past the fenced dog run through where lots of trees and bushes, right across the street from Vitka's house. Here came Soren now. His steps were jerky because he was carrying a large black case, and it was obviously heavy. He kept switching hands. It was kind of a briefcase, like might contain all sorts of things. A trumpet maybe, or a small doomsday device. As he entered the park, Soren glanced nervously all around, which made him look incredibly suspicious. With a big sigh, he sat down on the bench beside Ethan. Mission accomplished, asked Ethan. Soren said, I have the package. But he put the case flat on the grass and opened it. His brother's quadcopter lay nestled in black foam. The Phantom Hawk, Soren said reverently. Its blades are almost noiseless. That's good, said Ethan. We don't want noise. Soren carefully removed the quadcopter, and Ethan helped him attach a tiny camera to its underside. There's an app on my phone, Soren said. We can see whatever the camera sees. Soren switched the camera and moved the copter around with his hand. On the phone, Ethan could see the image nice and clear. Last thing, said Ethan, just in case we get close enough, he impaled a single page of comic book, lots of red on it. The copter's landing struts, good, he said to Soren, shouldn't affect the aerodynamics, Soren said wisely, taking control in his hand. It was super nice of Barnaby to lend us this, said Ethan. Said Soren. Hang on, he doesn't know you have it? It's fine, it's fine. So you're good on how to use this thing? Ethan asked. Yeah, he's let me take some test flights. How many? One, that he knew about, but I snuck it a few more. They moved across the park, crouched behind some bushes, and shuffled around until they got a clear view of Vitka's house. The range is good, said Soren, and I have clear sight lines of the windows, front and side. You're sure that's her house on the second floor? Her room on the second floor? Pretty sure, Ethan squinted. He then smiled. And the windows open, see? Wow, said Soren. Okay, let's do it. You need to buy me as much time as possible. Keep her downstairs. Ethan walked across the street to Vitka's. It was nice. It was a nice two-story brick house with dark green veranda. He marched up the front steps and knocked. It was Mrs. Worthington who opened the door, a sheaf of paper in one hand. Her face lit up with a big smile, so warm and genuine, Ethan had to smile back. Ethan, how nice to see you. She'd been really kind when his mom was sick. It all came back to him now. She'd left tons of meals for them. She'd also came over to the house several times when Dad needed someone to watch Sarah and him. He was younger then. She played games with them and made them interesting teas. He'd found her very comforting. Awkwardly, he stood on the doorstep, tongue-tied. Come inside. She shook the paper in her hand. I've been making essays all afternoon. But I'm just about to make a snack for Vitka. I'll tell her you're here. Thanks, he said, and he followed her into the kitchen. Take a seat. Do you like oatmeal cookies? How about some juice? Vitka, Ethan's here. Like her husband, Celine Worthington had no idea that he and Vitka were arch enemies. How could grown-ups be so clueless? Ethan sat on one of the stools. This was all good. All going according to plan. He heard footfalls on the stairs and Vitka appeared. Just the way she avoided his eyes confirmed his suspicion. Inkling was probably upstairs in her room right now in some kind of jar. Are you two working on a project together? Asked Mrs. Worthington. Sort of, Ethan said. Vitka didn't tell me. But she doesn't tell me much about anything, her mom said lightly, but with a point. Vitka hoisted herself onto the stool opposite Ethan. How's it going? She asked. Pretty good, he said. Through the kitchen window, Ethan could see Mr. Worthington mowing the back lawn. He still had plenty left. Perfect. The noise would cover the sound of the quadcopter. Ethan just hoped Soren kept it away from the downstairs window. Vitka's mom poured herself a cup of tea. Well, I need to get back to my fun marking, she said, and returned to the living room. Then Ethan nibbled at a cookie. It was a good cookie, but right now it tasted like the stalest cracker in the world. How's your project going? He asked Vitka. He needed to keep her downstairs as long as possible. That was the plan. You mean the graphic novel? He nodded, taking a tiny sip of juice. My parts have been done for ages, she said. I finished over a week ago. The other guys are still coloring and lettering. They better not screw it up. He nibbled a bit more on the cookie. Yeah, yours looked really good. I mean, you're the best in the class for sure. I was telling my dad about that. He never said that thing, by the way, about having no talent. I just made that up. I figured, she said. So I was wondering, he said, if you wouldn't mind giving me some drawing lessons. She looked at him in total disbelief. Me? Mm-hmm. I really like the way you draw. This was completely true. She glanced away as her cheeks flushed at the compliment. In that moment, she looked almost like a normal person. But when she looked back at him, her eyes were narrowed, like those of his archenemy. Your father's a famous artist. Why doesn't he give you lessons? Too busy. Your work looked just fine to me, said Vitka, if it was your work. So you won't give me lessons? Ethan, why are you here? I think you know why I'm here. Mom, Vitka called out, Ethan's going. No, I'm not, Ethan said. Vitka smiled coldly. Take another cookie if you like. Mrs. Worthington came in, looking surprised. That was a short meeting, Ethan. Say hi to your father for me, and how's Sarah? She's fine, thanks. He got up from the stool. What else was there to do? He hoped he'd given Soren enough time. Bye, he said. Vitka, Mrs. Worthington said with a tilt of her head, which meant you should see Ethan out. Vitka walked him to the front door. Okay, see you, she said robotically. Yep, thanks for the snack, Mrs. Worthington. Anytime, Ethan, she called out from the living room. The door closed hard behind them. Ethan bolted off to the porch and crossed the street to the park. Behind the bushes, Soren sat cross-legged, his eyes flicking with the copter controllers in his hand to the phone in his lap and the quadcopter itself, which Ethan could see hovering outside the open window on the second floor of Vitka's house. It's her room, all right, Soren said. It's got martial arts posters all over the walls. You see Inkling? Not yet. Take the phone. You're my eyes now. Ethan picked up the phone. On the screen was the interior of Vitka's room, everything curvy and a bit distorted from the camera fisheye lens. Also, Soren wasn't exactly keeping the copter steady, so it was hard to focus. He knew they didn't have long. Vitka might be walking upstairs right now. Go inside, he told Soren. What if I get caught? What if I can't get out? We have to go inside. If Inkling was inside, they could somehow get close enough. Inkling would grab a hold of the bright red comic page dangling beneath the copter. They'd carry him right out. But my flight skills aren't. A sudden gust of wind rustled Ethan's hair, and on the screen, the image of Vitka's room wobbling violently. When he looked up from the screen, he could see the quadcopter outside the house anymore. What happened? He asked. Soren's words came slowly. I am inside the house. Ethan looked back onto the screen. Everything in Vitka's room was now clearer and closer. Okay, it's okay, said Ethan. I no longer have visual contact with the copter, Ethan, said Soren, who sounded ready to freak out. I'm your eyes now, Ethan told him. This is good. Just keep her steady. You're doing great. What if I can't get back out the window, Soren squeaked. Let's just take a good look. Do a slow circle, turn around, keep turning. Ethan's eyes were glued to the screen looking for Inkling while also making sure Soren didn't crash into the lamp on the desk or the bed. I'm flying blind, Ethan. Just a little more to the right now. He realized how crazy his plan was. If Vitka did have Inkling, would she just leave him out in the open? Under the bed, he said, seeing it right in front of them. Can you go down low? How low? Lower, lower. The quadcopter lurched forward and skidded to a halt on Vitka's tangled sheets. What happened? Soren asked, craning his neck to see the screen. You've crashed on the bed. It's okay. It's soft. I'm going to lift off. In the bedroom door, Vitka suddenly appeared. Wait, Ethan said. Don't move. She's in the room. In a high-pitched voice, Soren said, in the room? She hasn't noticed us, Ethan whispered. Luckily, the quadcopter's white body and blades blended in with the sheets. Ethan's eyes were locked on the screen. Vidka closed the door and walked to her bookshelf. She reached behind some books and pulled out an old jam jar. A black shadow swirled around the bottom, trying to climb the sides. He's there, Ethan cried. He's in a jar. Vidka tapped the glass impatiently. Looks like she's talking to him, said Soren, leaning closer to the screen. Accidentally, he nudged out of the copter controllers. The camera made a little sideways tilt. Oh no, Soren breathed. Vidka's head whipped around. She stared right at the quadcopter, and then Vidka put down the jar and walked toward the bed. Fly, fly, Ethan shouted. Soren jiggled the controllers. Where? Anywhere. Up, up. Ethan saw Vidka grab for the quadcopter, but it jumped right off the bed, nearly hitting the ceiling. Where's the window? Wailed Soren. Right, right, too far, back to the left. Vidka looked into the view again, this time holding a tennis racket. Go, go, said Ethan. Left! The screen image became a swirl, and Ethan glanced up to see the quadcopter come spinning out of control through Vidka's window. Vidka stuck her head out and looked around furiously. I know it's you, Ethan, she shouted, and slammed the window shut. Soren fought to control the damaged quadcopter and brought it limping back across the street. Barnaby's going to kill me, said Soren as he landed it clumsily. On one of the rotator blades was crooked. It doesn't look too bad, said Ethan. It's bad. I'll pay for the repairs, said Ethan, I promise. At least now we know where Inkling was, but he had absolutely no idea how to get him back.